right in the kisser.
Hey, how the devil are you? Ooh, right. Now, a month or so ago, maybe a bit longer, a bit shorter, I'm not sure of the time scale. It's irrelevant anyway, isn't it? I was going to do a review of an amplifier that had been sent to me. It was a prototype amplifier that Shenzhen Audio were putting forward and it was called, get this, it's by LeAudio, LeAudio or LeAudio, I'm not 100% sure. Is it LeAudio or LeAudio? Don't know. And the amp was called the Cattle Pro. I know, it's an odd name for an amp, Cattle Pro, but it certainly stands out. You won't forget it. So there we go. Maybe as a marketing ploy, I don't know. But I was in the middle of reviewing this amp when I came across a few little things which I didn't really like. And rather than put the review out, I thought I'd contact the company instead. And I made a video about this without revealing what amp it was. And a few people disagreed with me. They said, you should let us know. And like that. Well, look, it's a prototype. You've got to give these companies a chance to make amendments to it, okay? And that's my personal opinion, and I will stick to that, right? So anyway, what I found with the amp was, first of all, it was like the feet. They were just too small and too slippery. You'd try and put your on and off button and the amp would just slide back and forth. Only a little thing, but I just thought I'd mention it to the company. Then it was a buzzing noise in the right channel, and I could just about hear it in the background. And I think the main thing was that this amplifier, it can operate up to 200 watts with a 48 volt 5 amp power supply, I believe, or it might be 10 amp, I'm not 100% sure. But I had a 48 volt 5 amp power supply and I put it on and it kept going into protection mode. So I was like, well, that's not very good. So I had to drop down to a 36 volt, which I also had in one of my cupboards somewhere. There we are, got one. So I wrote to the company and told them this, and they wrote back saying, okay, well, look, we'll put new feet on it, right? And they will also, I think, do some changes to the heat exchanger and replace some of the inductors in the amp. And we'll send you a new model when it's done. So they have sent me a new model. So this is the mystery amp, right? So we're going to put it through its paces today and see if they've overcome some of the issues that I addressed. And I have to say that they were really professional about it. They didn't like kick off or get really angry. Some companies have. You've seen other reviewers which give bad reviews or say things about certain products and the company gets their head up their bum and they don't like it. Not this company. They were really, really good. I wrote to them. They thanked me for my feedback. And not only that, they made well, not so much the repairs, but the amendments. So anyway, let's get it out of the box and see what they've done and see if it now works with a 48 volt 5 amp power supply without going into protection mode. Ooh, let's open the box. Okay, here's the original one and here's the new one. So you can see, first of all, you can see there's a small feet there, and in comparison, they've put some larger feet on. And I have to say, it does make a difference. So what was happening is that when you press the button there from the front, sometimes it would kind of slide back a little bit too slidey. especially if you had a polished surface. This one, they've obviously made the feet bigger, and it kind of stays there, kind of stays in its place, okay? I know it's trivial, but it's nice to have those feet on without this sliding back like that every time you wanted to turn it on and off. It was doing my head in. So that's cool. Now, as you can see on the front here, they got the power, and you got the source there, source 1 and source 2, D1, D2. Because on the back, this is pretty cool. You can have two devices plugged in. So you could have a DAC in one, maybe a CD player in another, or a tape deck, or whatever you want to plug into the next one. It's good to have that option. And you've got your subwoofer out there. I would go to an active subwoofer. Right, so let's plug this into a 48 volt 5 amp power supply and see if they've solved or resolved that protection mode issue. Here it is switched on. You've got to hold the button for 2 seconds to switch on and hold the buttons for 2 seconds to switch off. I'm not sure why you would need to hold the button for 2 seconds to switch on. It should just be an instant on, maybe 2 seconds to switch off. I don't know, but it's not much of a bugbear. You've got this permanent light around the volume. Some people may not like that. You can't turn it off or on. It might have been a good option to put a way of turning that light off. It doesn't bother me at all. I'm fine with it, but some people may not like it if they're listening to music in the dark. You know what I'm saying. Right, I'm very happy to report that they've resolved or solved the issue with the 48 volt 5 amp power supply. So they were true to their word. I popped on a 48 volt 5 amp power supply and it played absolutely fine. And I properly whacked it up. I probably disturbed the neighbours a little bit. You know, I may have some noise complaints later, but hey, whatever, yeah. This is all for science. Anyway, yeah, so I did it. I put the 48 volt 5 amp power supply on. I had it whacked up pretty loud and played it for about 20 minutes. No problem at all. It didn't get hot at all. So they've obviously solved that issue. Brilliant, fantastic. There was no buzzing in any of the speakers. Brilliant. And I thought it sounded pretty good. So what I've done is I've put this up against the IEMA B07. Now, obviously the B07, I'm not using any of the subwoofer, the passive subwoofer on it. I'm setting the bass and treble to 0 dB. Okay, they're going to be volume matched. The Cattle Pro doesn't have a bass and treble control, but personally I don't think it needs it. But you decide anyway. So here's a sound test between the Cattle Pro and the B07, and we'll have a little chat afterwards. And there you go. Now, the issue being, when you record it directly from the speakers, rather than directly from source, like I do with DACs, you're also hearing the sound of my room. So it's very hard to get an accurate gauge of which one sounds better than the other. But, you know, let me know what you think. I forgot to mention that I used the 48 volt 5 amp on the IEMA, because that comes with it. And I used the stock power supply for the Cattle Pro, which was the 24 volt 3 amp. Okay. And to be fair, it performed pretty well with a 24 volt 3 amp. However, I did think that the IEMA B07 with the 48 volt 5 amp had a little bit more sparkle on top. But the Cattle Pro gives out some decent bass considering there's no tone controls. It does put out some decent bass. And when I tried it with the bigger power supply, it did give it a bit more oomph. Like personally, I would prefer to use, you might not need the 48 volt 5 amp power supply, but at least a 32 or a 36. I think it would be better to go with it than the 24. But the 24 volt 3 amp is fine. It delivers pretty well. The sound was good. The mid-ranges were nice. I couldn't complain about the sound at all. But I do think that a 32 volt, especially if you've got a bit of a bigger room and you want to listen further away and it's not near field, you might need the 32 or 36. I don't think you need the 48 volt 5 amp unless you've got a really big room and you really want to drive it like mentally loud. But yeah, I tried a 36 volt on it and I thought it'd just give it a bit more of an edge to it. That's my personal opinion. Anyway, when you think about it, right, in its stock form, I think it's coming in, it's going to be under £100. I know it. I'm not sure the exact price yet. Probably about 80 quid-ish, okay, around that ballpark area. So you're getting a pretty decent amplifier, especially when you think it's using dual NE5532 amplifier chips, and the power amp is the Texas Instruments TPA 3255. I mean, that's a decent chipset for an amplifier under 100 quid. Most of these amps that are coming over now, they're probably all using these chipsets, or most of them are, simply because they're good chips. There you go. But anyway, that's come to the end of the video. I think the improvements they made are great. It sounds good. Great price. Yeah. I'm happy to recommend the Cattle Pro. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.